Hello, welcome to the information and training video explaining EPA's gas distribution NESHAP 6C rule. The purpose of this video is to help small businesses better understand and comply with federal environmental regulations. Throughout this video, we will explain the need for the rule, who is subject, what the rule requires, and when compliance is due. We will also provide additional resources and contact information should you have further questions. Thank you for your attention as we walk you through the requirements of this rule. The standard is required by the Clean Air Act and goes by a rather lengthy name: the National Emission Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants for Source Category, Gasoline Dispensing Facilities Subpart CCC-CCC. For ease, we will refer to it as NESHAP 6C. Please note that this is a federal, not a state rule. Therefore, it applies nationwide. NESHAP 6C focuses on controlling the emission of gasoline vapors during the loading of underground storage tanks. This is often referred to as Stage 1 vapor recovery. The rule does not regulate the emissions of gasoline vapors when vehicles are filled at the gas pump. Capturing vapors at the pump is referred to as Stage 2 vapor recovery. This federal regulation was last amended on January 24, 2011, and affects all gasoline dispensing facilities in the United States, as well as businesses that own and operate gasoline dispensing equipment for fleet vehicles. A gasoline dispensing facility, or GDF, is defined as any stationary facility dispensing gasoline into the fuel tank of an on- or off-road motor vehicle, lawn and landscaping equipment, boat, test engine, or generator. This definition includes, but is not limited to, retail gasoline stations, as well as commercial gasoline stations and private fleet vehicle refueling centers and marinas. Let's begin with some background information and the need for NESHAP 6C. EPA is required under the Clean Air Act to identify hazardous air pollutants that pose the greatest health threat in largely populated urban areas. Area sources emit less than 10 tons annually of a single hazardous air pollutant, or less than 25 tons per year of a combination of hazardous air pollutants. Major sources emit more. Gasoline dispensing facilities are one of the area source categories listed by EPA. Gasoline vapor from these facilities contains hazardous air pollutants that pose a health risk. By installing required controls or vapor balance systems, the amount of hazardous air pollutants released to the atmosphere is reduced by about 2,300 tons annually nationwide. The NESHAP 6C rule applies to all existing and new gas dispensing facilities in the United States. The affected sources are both the gasoline tanker truck during delivery of gasoline to a gas station and each gas station's gasoline storage tank. In addition, depending on where the station is located, there may be state and local rules that already require these controls. Again, the equipment or gas pumps used for refueling motor vehicles, commonly referred to as Stage 2 systems, are not covered under this rule, but are addressed by a separate requirement contained in the 1990 amendments to the Clean Air Act. Now that we have answered who is subject to NESHAP 6C, let's look at the specific requirements. We have divided this into two sections. The first covers general requirements, including best management practices, equipment requirements, record keeping, and reporting. The second section discusses required performance testing. Note that record keeping requirements began on January 24, 2011 for existing stations. For new or reconstructed stations, record keeping begins at startup. A new station is a source that began construction after November 9, 2006. There are 3 increasing levels of control depending on your monthly gasoline throughput. In other words, the greater your throughput, the more requirements you must meet. Monthly throughput is calculated in one of 2 ways: the total amount of gasoline that is loaded during the current day, plus the total volume loaded during the previous 364 days divided by 12 months, or the total amount of gasoline that is dispensed from all gasoline storage tanks at the station during the current day, plus the total volume dispensed from all gasoline storage tanks during the previous 364 days divided by 12 months. Level 1. Facilities with a monthly throughput of under 10,000 gallons must meet the following Level 1 requirements. All owners or operators are required to minimize evaporation by establishing and maintaining best management practices. This includes minimizing spills. If spills do occur, they must be cleaned up as quickly as possible. Gasoline containers and storage tank fill pipes should be covered with gasketed seals. Gasoline sent to open collection systems should be kept to a minimum. As for record keeping, you are not required to submit notifications or reports. However, you must have records that document your gasoline throughput and make them available within 24 hours if requested by the applicable authorities. Level 2. Facilities with a monthly throughput at or above 10,000 gallons but less than 100,000 gallons must meet all Level 1 requirements, plus the following Level 2 requirements. Storage tanks at or above 250-gallon capacity must be loaded using submerged fill pipes or drop tubes. Submerged filling reduces the release of gasoline vapors by reducing splashing when the gasoline is loaded. With this equipment, less vapors are produced, and the potential for air emission is therefore reduced. Note: storage tanks less than 250-gallon capacity must follow requirements for Level 1. For pipes installed on or before November 9, 2006, fill pipes or drop tubes should extend such that gasoline discharge occurs no more than 12 inches from the bottom of the tank. For pipes installed after November 9, 2006, gasoline discharge should occur no more than 6 inches from the bottom of the tank. Owners must also provide documentation that the gasoline level never falls below the 12 or 6-inch fill pipe discharge point. Level 2 regulations may require larger facilities to install equipment that will help reduce the amount of vapors generated while gasoline is dropped from the tanker truck into the gasoline dispensing facility storage tank. As for record keeping, you must maintain records that document your gasoline throughput and make them available within 24 hours of request by the applicable authorities. You must also submit the applicable notifications required under Section 6.3.11124A of the rule. We will be discussing this in further detail later in this video. Level 3. The largest facilities, those with a monthly throughput at or above 100,000 gallons, must meet all Level 1 and 2 requirements we have just discussed, plus operate a vapor balance system. Before we get into the specific criteria options, let's cover what vapor balance equipment does. In the simplest of terms, a vapor balance control system is equipment that reduces the amount of gasoline vapors released when the underground gasoline storage tanks are filled. Vapor balance equipment consists of a series of hoses and special fittings. Without properly installed equipment, vapors escape through a vent pipe and are released into the atmosphere. However, vapor balance control equipment directs the displaced vapors from the fill tank back into the tanker. The tanker truck drivers then take the vapors back to the terminal where they can be recovered as gasoline. This is known as Stage 1 vapor balance. The Stage 1 vapor balance system can reduce air pollution, save money by conserving gasoline that would otherwise be lost in the air, and protect public health by reducing the possibility of breathing toxic gasoline vapors. The effectiveness of the vapor recovery program, and ultimately the quality of the air, depends on correct use and functioning of the Stage 1 gasoline vapor balance system. There are 3 different connections that are possible between the storage tank and the tanker. Vapor balance connections can be either a dual point, coaxial, or a manifold connection. A dual point connection uses 2 separate tank openings, usually a few feet away from each other. One opening is for fuel delivery into the tank, and one opening for the vapor transfer back to the tanker truck. A coaxial connection uses a drop tube with a narrow top section to create a vapor pathway between the drop tube and the fill pipe. A special coaxial delivery elbow must be used to complete the fuel and vapor pathways to the tanker truck. In a manifold connection, the vent pipes of the tanks are connected. This allows for more than one underground storage tank to be filled at a time, and the vapors to be transferred back to the tanker truck through one pipe. The NESHAP 6C rule requires all gasoline dispensing facility tanks installed after November 9, 2006 have dual point connections. Those GDF tanks installed on or before November 9, 2006 can have either a dual point, coaxial, or manifold connection. Coaxial connections have been shown to release more gasoline vapors during loading than a dual point connection, and therefore the NESHAP 6C rule requires all newer or reconstructed GDF tanks have dual point connections. Now that we have reviewed what a vapor balance system does, let's look at the conditions under which they must be used. If your monthly throughput is equal to or greater than 100,000 gallons, you must operate a vapor balance system and meet Level 1 and Level 2 requirements discussed earlier. Additionally, you must meet one of the following Level 3 conditions. Level 3 Condition 1. Operate a vapor balance system installed prior to January 10, 2008 that meets specified enforceable state, local, or tribal rules or permits that require either an emission reduction of at least 90%, or Level 3 Condition 2. Operate according to the following best management practices with a vapor balance system meeting 9 design criteria. Number 1. Connections and lines should be equipped with sealed closures. Number 2. Vapor line from the tanker truck to the storage tanks must be tight, no losses. Number 3. Tanker truck tank pressure must not exceed 18 inches of water pressure or 5.9 inches of water vacuum during the product transfer. Number 4. Vapor balance system must be designed to prevent over-tight or loose fittings. Number 5. The opening on the top of the tank used to measure the amount of product in the tank, also known as the gauge well, must be equipped with a submerged drop tube extending the specified 12 or 6-inch distance from the tank bottom. This applies to storage tanks at or above 250-gallon capacity. The important thing to note is the GDF owner must prove that the fill tube was always submerged in the product while it was being transferred into the tank. Number 6. Vapor-tight caps for liquid fill connections. Number 7. Pressure vacuum vent valves on tank vent pipes at specified setting. This should be tested initially or at installation, and again every 3 years. Number 8. Vapor balance system must initially meet static pressure test, and again every 3 years. Number 9. Dual point vapor balance systems are required for new and reconstructed gasoline dispensing facilities or tanks, or Level 3 Condition 3. Under this option, you must operate a vapor balance system demonstrated to achieve an emission reduction of 95% or better. To ensure vapor tightness of the tanker trucks, U.S. EPA Method 27 is required annually. Keep records and submit reports as specified in Sections 6.3.11125 and 6.3.11126 of the rule. Now it's time to discuss performance testing and the requirements for each of the 3 Level 3 conditions. There are no testing requirements for GDFs complying with Level 3 Condition 1. These GDFs are subject to comply with state vapor balance requirements prior to January 10, 2008. For Level 3 Condition 2, you are required to perform the following 2 performance tests. The first is the California Air Resources Board, or CARB Test Procedure 201.1E, and is required for every state, even if you aren't located in California. This test is used to determine the leak rate and cracking pressure of the pressure vacuum vent valves installed on the gasoline storage tank vent pipes. The second test is CARB Test Procedure 201.3, which is a static pressure test of the vapor balance system. If you choose Level 3 Condition 3, then you are required to perform 3 performance tests. The first test, CARB Test Procedure 201.1, demonstrates that the vapor balance system being used actually achieves a 95% emission reduction rate. The second and third tests are the 2 mentioned earlier. The CARB Test Procedure 201.E for leak rate and cracking pressure on the PV vent valves, and the CARB Test Procedure 201.3, which tests static pressure on the tank. All tests must be performed initially and every 3 years thereafter. For existing GDFs, the initial tests should have been completed by July 9, 2011, if the vapor balance system was installed on or before December 15, 2009. If the vapor balance system was installed after December 15, 2009, testing was required upon installation. For new GDFs, the initial tests must be completed upon installation of the vapor balance system, and again every 3 years. You are also required to notify EPA of all performance testing at least 60 days prior to conducting and submitting the test results. If you have a new or reconstructed gas station, you must be in compliance with the NESHAP 6C rule immediately upon completion of construction. If the monthly throughput of your GDF has changed your status, requiring you to meet a higher level of control, you must comply no later than 3 years after you become subject to the rule. Finally, if your existing gas dispensing facility is subject to the rule only because it loads gasoline into fuel tanks other than those of motor vehicles, you must comply by January 24, 2014. NESHAP 6C requires you to submit an initial notification form to EPA that simply identifies who you are and that you are subject to the NESHAP 6C rule. Once you are required to be in compliance with the rule, you will need to provide EPA the notification of compliance status. New sources constructed since November 9, 2006 must have met the NESHAP 6C rule requirements by January 10, 2008 or upon startup if startup occurs after that date. Existing sources had until January 10, 2011 to meet the NESHAP 6C rule requirements. The required forms can be found by contacting the Department of Environmental Protection for your state. Now, let's do a quick summary of the key points. The federal NESHAP for gasoline dispensing facilities, NESHAP 6C, applies to all sources that dispense gasoline into a fuel tank of a motor vehicle. This includes all gasoline stations and many fleet vehicle refueling centers. NESHAP 6C requires you to keep records of all the following information: documentation of your monthly gasoline throughput and the method you use to calculate it, volume loaded or volume dispensed from all tanks. These records must be available to U.S. EPA within 24 hours of request. Copies of the notifications that you are required to submit to EPA, and copies of all the required performance test results. Sources must maintain these test result reports for 5 years. Documentation showing that when gasoline loading occurs, the fill pipe opening is submerged 6 to 12 inches. The amendment addressing this requirement can be found in the Federal Register on page 4168 under Response. If you cease to comply with any part of the rule, you need to identify when the deviation occurred and what corrective actions were taken to get back into compliance as quickly as possible. Now to recap your requirements and compliance dates. Remember, all new, existing, and reconstructed gas dispensing facilities must now be in compliance. Your specific requirements are based on your GDF's monthly gasoline throughput. If your monthly throughput is less than 10,000 gallons, then the requirements are simple. You must meet Level 1 conditions, which are general best management practices, and you must maintain records of your GDF's monthly throughput. If your monthly throughput is 10,000 gallons or more and less than 100,000 gallons, then you must meet both Level 1 and Level 2 requirements. This includes general best management practices and utilizes submerged filling when loading tanks over 250 gallons. You must also maintain records of your GDF's monthly throughput. And finally, if your monthly throughput is 100,000 gallons or more, you have a number of requirements. As of January 10, 2011, you must meet conditions of both Levels 1 and 2 and have a vapor balance system that meets either Level 3 Condition 1, 2, or 3 when the gasoline tanks are filled. You must also submit your notification of compliance status to EPA, conduct your performance testing, and begin keeping records of your testing. For existing GDFs, performance testing was due by January 10, 2011. By July 10, 2011, testing reports were to be submitted to EPA. Additionally, for existing sources, the compliance deadlines are May 9th of 2008, submit your initial notification form. If you missed this date, you still need to submit this form to EPA. January 10th of 2011 to be in compliance with best management practices. You must meet the submerged filling and vapor balance system requirements. September 7th of 2011. EPA must receive your notification of compliance status. January 5th of 2012, or within 180 days of completing your performance testing, you must submit your reporting information to EPA. If you have missed these dates, you still need to conduct the tests required by the NESHAP 6C rule and file the notifications of compliance status with EPA. You can learn more about national emission standards for hazardous air pollutants for source category, Gasoline Dispensing Facilities Subpart CCC at EPA's website, or by visiting the Environmental Compliance section of the Small Business Assistance Program website. Follow the links to your local agency. If you would like to contact the U.S. EPA for information about the rule, contact Andrea Cyphers. For compliance assistance, contact Maria Malve. At a time when small businesses are challenged by the economy, we want to make sure you receive all the information you need to comply with environmental rules and regulations. We hope this video has been helpful in making compliance easier to understand. Thank you for watching the training video for NESHAP 6C on gasoline distribution and for doing your part to help protect the air we all breathe.